Hello, Seattle Video Tech. I'm going to talk to you today about HLS.js, what it is, and how it's changed over the last year or two as I've maintained the project in that time and released version 1. So just to jump right into it, HLS.js is a JavaScript library that plays HLS in browsers with support for MSE. Since this is a Video Tech meetup, I'm not going to go too into what HLS is or what MSE is. There are some resources I'll share at the end that really get into that, and Zach's going to talk about some cool features later that are coming to HLS. But I really want to talk about this project and how I got involved in it, some of the history, and some of the features that are new to the project. So HLS.js is also one of many ways to play HLS in a browser. And the first was really Safari, right? I tell people if they want to find out what HLS is, don't Google HLS, because you'll probably find some links to like law firms and with like HLS is like an acronym for their name. You want to search for Apple HLS. Apple created the spec in 2009, and Playback and Safari followed. Other browsers could not play HLS on their own. I think there was some support that came to Android and some to Edge. It was okay, but the industry really needed a JavaScript capable or HTML5 capable HLS client that could handle HLS playback in all the other browsers, so Chrome, Firefox, etc. And that's what HLS.js is. I mentioned that Safari was first because my approach to the project in terms of what HLS.js supports is that it should support what Safari supports within reason, right? So if you come to HLS.js and say, hey, my stream doesn't play in HLS.js, what's going on? The first thing I'm going to do is see if it plays in Safari, and if it does, but not in HLS.js, yeah, boy, do I have a bug to fix for you. And so if this was Safari, I'd be able to just paste an M3U8 link in here and play it. I'm actually in Chrome, so I'm just pretending I'm doing that. This is an MP4, so I'm not too exciting. But I did mention other players, and a great resource for finding about other open source players that can handle HLS is Awesome Video. And they have this little web section here with different web players. And the ones worth noting, I think, are Video.js, HTTP streaming. It's a library that can, a component of Video.js that can handle HLS and Dash. I think you've also got Shaka Player, which may not support as many streams. They're a little stricter when it comes to hey, it's a little bit outside the spec, so let's just not play it. But I think Shaka is worth noting because they handle playback of streams in Google's Chromecast receiver. The default Chromecast receiver if you don't develop your own. So you might have used some video player library that uses a default receiver, sends a stream over to Chromecast. Shaka Player can't play it. You've got an issue, right? And then there's a lot of other commercial players that can handle HLS, not mentioned here. So I work for a company that created one, JW Player. You've got Theo Player, which is fantastic, Bitmovin. These all have their own implementations of HLS playback, and then some of the other ones listed here actually use HLS.js. If you jump into the project and look at their dependencies, they depend on HLS.js for playback. There's a couple slides I wanted to show you guys, which were hard to fit in, but I figured something that was interesting since I mentioned I work at JW Player was one of the things that I brought to the project was to look at data and compare the data we see in playback in Safari or playback in the video tag natively compared to HLS.js. And this is a report that we used even to compare two versions of HLS.js before releasing version 1. So we can see things like, are people able to play for each embed, or what are the average stalls per play per embed? What kind of error rate do we see? Time to first frame, and then some quality metrics around where playback starts. Does it start on 720 or more like a 480p sort of quality? And so the one thing that I think is an interesting anecdote to share here is that in general, what we see with HTML5 playback is starting somewhere in maybe a middle to higher quality, but tending to switch down or up in the first 10 seconds of playback. It's more rare that HTML5 playback will stay in the same place, whereas HLS.js, at least in JW Player, tends to kind of start on one level and stay there, and in fewer cases switch up or down. That's not all because of HLS.js. That also has to do with us sort of caching a bandwidth estimate and reusing it for return visits. But I thought that'd be cool to share. And then maybe also to show some information about different browser versions. So we're actually seeing a few more stalls in Safari 14 than we were in Safari 13. This has a little bit more to do with some edge cases and changes to auto start behavior. It's not necessarily that Safari 14 doesn't buffer as well. Again, this is somewhat anecdotal, but just information about our player. And then you see Chrome desktop has these interesting waves where like this is 3 days of data. And so I think what's happening here is this is maybe more region-based, like a particular region comes into effect at this part of the day, and that affects this metric. There's more stalls in those places. So could be, right? I haven't dug too much into this. But then interestingly, all the way at the bottom is Chrome Android, which is hardly ever stalling. Like, this is where you want to be, like 3 or 4 out of every 100, plays has a stall maybe. That's great. Or maybe our implementation isn't reporting stalls correctly in Chrome Android. Don't know, but thought it'd be fun to throw this in. I haven't thrown this into a talk yet, so there you go. We could talk more later about browsers. So back to what HLS.js is. It's an open source project created by Guillaume de Pontevis in 2015. He was working at Dailymotion at the time, and Dailymotion used HLS.js pretty heavily. He also based a lot of his work on some of the analytics that he captured while he was there, particularly for ABR, et cetera. And a lot of people have contributed to the project. It's been very active over the last 6 years. We've got Stefan who provided a lot of the audio track and subtitle track work in 2018. Tom Jenkinson does a lot of our CI work. Jamie, who's at Redspace, has provided a lot of insight into how we can improve DRM support. And then I've got to talk about John Bartosz. John Bartosz started working at JW Player around 2017, and we didn't integrate HLS.js yet into our project. We were trying to come up with our own HTML5 HLS player. Didn't work out. John did the integration. In 2018, Guillaume, or Mangui up here, he went on to Netflix, and so couldn't continue supporting the project. John Bartosz took over as lead maintainer, and as he was working on the project, he wanted part of the project to be something of his own, right? So he noticed that Periscope and Twitch were using HLS to do low latency, and they were doing chunk transfer encoding, similar to how low latency works in Dash, but nobody had really formalized it into a spec, so he did that. This is his talk at Demuxt in the end of 2015, talking about CTE. And we were like, cool, this could be really interesting. I wonder if Apple will accept this and bring it into their own spec and contribute to it. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. So later in I think mid 2019, right? Apple came forward with their own approach to low latency HLS. It is sort of a conglomerate of these different features: partial segments, delta playlist updates, blocking playlist reload, preload hints, rendition reports. So what happened, famously in 2019, Will of Akamai gave a talk about the many roads to Jerusalem, or many roads to low latency HLS. And so Apple flew in with their spec. I have to fast forward just a little bit. Bartosz got off the LHLS or JW Player Camel and went to work for Twitch. by John. And that pretty much left me maintaining the project. We were 1.0 had started, so there was kind of a branch that was refactoring the code to do that progressive streaming of chunk transfer elements. And I kept that in, so there's a way to turn that on, but by default, turn that off, drop support for what was in the Bartosz spec, because he announced the spec was no longer going to be supported, and I began work on LLHLS. And so that took a while. It took a while, but we released it April 1st. It wasn't a joke. It was April Fool's, but we released HLS JS version 1 with support for low latency HLS, improved support for redundant variants. This is sort of the informal way to have redundancy from one CDN to another. What's cool is Zach's going to talk about Apple putting forward a new spec that sort of formalizes that. Improved support for audio and subtitle groups. So you switch a level, there's groups associated with that level. You can't mix and match those tracks, which you were able to do before, and led to some funky behavior sometime. And another focus has been fragmented FMP4 support. A lot of work has gone into improving that. The progressive chunk transfer feature that I mentioned earlier is still in there, labeled experimental. So my support of that feature is, and prioritization of it is kind of low. It's in there. It's kind of, in honor of my former colleague and the work that was handed off to me. And all of the source has been converted to TypeScript. So that was 1.0. We've done a couple patches since then. There's a few more on the way. In the project README right now, or pretty soon, front and center, you're going to see the list of features. This was in there before, but a little lower. We also have a list of tags that we support. When we say we support a tag, what we mean is we support it in terms of what the HLS spec says a client should do with said tag. There are also some things that we parse that we don't fully support, so those are listed, and then other features that are not supported yet, with links to issues of what we want to do in the future, so you can track those. You can also see we use milestones and kind of where we are within those milestones. So .3 is coming next. There's just one more issue to close out. Planning usually only goes one or two versions ahead. There is a larger sort of group of issues, a sort of Kanban style roadmap, if you will, in projects that you can check out. And then I would be remiss to talk about the project without showing you guys the demo. I'm not going to give a demo here, but if you're working with the project or you want to report a bug, this is a great place to go to verify your streams. You can see the list of test streams that we have. You can enter your own stream here, your own configuration. Click a link to permalink that and share that permalink around. Here I'm just playing some open media from Netflix that I encoded into an HLS file. And then we got all these cool tabs at the bottom. I made this timeline here. It's my favorite tool. It shows you the tracks and levels that are in the stream that you loaded, the media source buffers and their progress, and the intersection of those two up top, the media buffer. So there you go. I seek forward. We loaded some video. We loaded some audio. We can play this content. Cool. And you can hold down Shift and open a couple of these tabs at the same time. So you have your playback controls. If you're good testing and you want to stop this thing from making your browser load tons of files, you can hit stop loading. That's my favorite tip for everyone. Switch audio tracks. There are these really interesting metrics. I think Guillaume did this back in the day. Still keep in there. So this is to really help see buffer and loading performance and timing. And then just some text, the numbers in text. When you're playing a live stream too, and we have Apple's reference. Sorry, let me mute that. When you have Apple's reference low latency stream, you can see there's some live stats in there too. So latency, drift, all these things in the target latency that kind of help you see kind of where you are, or give you some metrics in terms of how things are performing. If looking at this is too detailed. And yeah, that's the demo. We could do a whole nother talk about low latency HLS, but that's yesterday's feature. I don't want to get too into it. There is one part of that spec that I didn't implement. That's the prefetch tag. So we could achieve lower latencies there. And there's some performance work that could happen too that could also improve support for streams with even smaller parts. So most of this work was developed against Apple's example with 1 second parts. A lot of people have since, after the release, said, hey, I have half-second parts or even smaller ones. And under some circumstances, there are performance issues there. Also, early days with these new LLHLS services, so hard to tell, is it the server or the client, but definitely want to improve HLS to the point where we can say it's less likely it's the client. All right, and I'll also mention the deployments page, right? So we have all of the versions of HLS.js in those demo pages listed under deployments. So if you wanted to test a different version other than whatever the latest here is on Netlify or off the development branch, you can check deployments. Another thing I wanted to shout out was Dash.js's reference player. I really like this demo page. I really like the organization of test streams and how you can see who contributed them. So we have stuff from Microsoft Azure contributed here, from Exanom, from Wowza, and it just goes to show kind of the strength of having an industry forum that can supply test vectors and what that can give you. Maybe also just some better design chops than what we have here in the HLS.js demo, but just as this is a shout out and a warning to Dash.js. I have my eye on you. I have my eye on your demo page. HLS.js's demo page will get better. But I hope you familiarize yourself with it and use it if you want to contribute to the project. Also, if you're not already on video dev, go to video-dev.slack.com. We have an HLS.js channel there. This is where, if filing an issue is just too slow, you can reach me here and ask anything about the project, see how things are going. Everyone's welcome there. There was some interesting conversation about test streams happening here. There was a project that was just kind of started, but never really picked up steam under Video.js.org, the Streams project, and this is going to be like a list of streams with all of their features and flaws. And this project could be used as a dependency in other players. So Gary from Video.js brought this up and just reminded me, hey, what do you think about using this? We could use it in Video.js and HLS.js, share test streams. I think that'd be pretty awesome. So that could be something we're going to do pretty soon. And if you like any of these links that I've shown, I have an outline of this talk. It might be a little different, include some things I didn't talk about this time, but happy to share this with you guys and keep the conversation going. That's it.
Thanks, Rob. That was awesome. Maybe you can paste the link to the to this page that you're just showing into the chat. I should have mentioned up front that you can pop the chat out and ask questions. I thought that was super interesting. Probably not the right time to say that I'm the Microsoft representative on the Dash.IF board, but we appreciate your compliments on the demo page.
It's fantastic. It's really fantastic.
Really, the player test page that you showed was really impressive, especially all of the metrics that you're getting out of it and the ways that you can actually represent those visually. That's really cool to see.
Thank you.
I might have missed whether I'm able to select the player version. I saw that you have the list of all of the player versions, but can I actually use a different player version on the test page, or is it just the latest stable version that's being used?
There are two links. There's the latest release and the development branch link, but then there's that page that we have called deployments that lists every version. So both stable releases and canaries. I'm not sure if there's a link to it from the demo page. Let me just pull that up in the background and share it in the chat.
Awesome. folks, if people have questions, you can unmute, ask away, or type, and I'll speak for you if you want. Whatever you guys want to do, whatever works. Wow, stunned silence. I'm amazed. All right. Well, again, Rob, thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll ask the question.
Go on then, Andy.
Does it like to run in a Chrome browser, or is it really browser agnostic?
The browser must support MSE, media source extensions, API. We also require promises with version 1, but you can polyfill promises if you need to. We have a list of supported browsers on the README, so it includes all of the big ones, right? So we support Edge, Chrome. We support Safari in the versions of Safari that support MSE, so everywhere except for iPhone. And there's probably some others I'm just blanking on at the moment. But I think minimum version for MS browsers is IE11, so that's where you need that promise polyfill. But it should be, for the most part, browser agnostic. In Chrome, we say we support Chrome 39 and up. I'd say we occasionally test on like Chrome 63. Maybe we don't go so far back. And then I know that some folks use HLS.js on smart TVs, but there have been some issues with memory and resource constraints there. I don't personally invest time testing on those platforms, so I can't vouch for them that HLS.js is perfect there. You have to kind of do that on your own and let me know if you find things. But we have had some folks say that version 1 improves things a lot in some smart TV environments because it allows you to configure how long of a back buffer you want, and it will eject media from the back buffer rather than leave that up to the browser, which it only did with live streams previously. So there's a lot of cases where it's you're on your own to make sure you test your use case and your target devices, but it's not just for Chrome.
So it looks like we've got a question from Nicholas asking about the current state of DRM support.
Yeah, there's an issue for that. I would say go to issues, and you'll see a slew of issues tagged with DRM, and one in particular called the state of DRM. Right now, there is support for wide-vide CDM from the Shaka packager. So we have one stream in that demo list of streams that is a stream with Widevine created from the Shaka packager. That's about all I can say we really support. It was listed as experimental in the README. There are folks using it in production if it works with your particular flavor. I'm not sure that's going to include CMAF with Widevine. For example, if you need sample AES, we only support sample AES and TS. We don't support multiple keys in the manifest, so it gets more complicated than I can sum up. But I would say, give it a try. Take a look at the issues tagged DRM. If you don't see yours covered there, please create one. We'd love to track what use case we're not covering and include it in a future epic when we have time to prioritize DRM work in the project.
I've also got SSAI with clear on top of that just to make it even more confusing.
Widevine and there's SSAI in the stream, or?
Yeah, so it's HLS, Widevine, SSAI, CMAF, but the ads are clear.
Oh my gosh. Oh, they're in clear. Okay, so could we switch between encrypted segments and non-encrypted segments? I don't know. By the way, hi Jeremy.
It works in Fairplay, but
cool.
I'm keen to get into other browsers. Media package release. Sorry guys, I took over again. Media package released multiple DRM options now. Widevine with Play Ready coming, and so I can hopefully get rid of Dash.
Whoa.
Sorry, Jack.
Yeah, it's not, like I said, HLS.js's mission is to play HLS as well as other browsers can. nothing to do with getting rid of Dash. Although that demo, we want a better demo. We like that demo. That's really cool. A stream like that would, if there is such a stream that could be shared, that could be open for us to work against, that would be really exciting. I have been given compliments about our support for discontinuities. So if you have SSAI, you're going to have discontinuities, and some HLS clients can choke on those, especially with quality switching or live. We do a decent job there, but then you pile on all the other stuff you mentioned, and I'm not feeling so confident, but would love to take a crack at it.
I'm ambitious, aren't I? Anyway.
Can I pitch in a little bit on the DRM content with clear ads? That should work.
Hey, Joey.
Hi. That should work on any desktop browser. I'm not aware of any where that's an issue. In Shaka, we had some issues with some smart TV platforms and Xbox where we had to come up with a pretty awful hack to make it work, but where essentially you take all the clear init segments and manipulate them to look like encrypted init segments, and then everything's fine after that. But yeah, in general, appending clear content to a source buffer after you've set it up for DRM should always work.
Yeah, there's a quirk around
modulo broken platforms.
There's a quirk in PlayReady because the first segment has to be DRM'd. So I think it's only Xbox hates it. Anyway, this is my Zach's typing. I've upset him with my plan to get rid of Dash.
I was going to say that the trick is just to throw the encrypted init in there and then throw another init. You don't even need to throw segments.
Oh yeah, of course. You got the init, so you just encrypt that. Good call.
So one thing that HLS.js is definitely missing is we don't have support for multiple maps, which I think is what would cover your multiple inits. Although there's a PR that just landed today, which we're going to get into the following patch, not the next one, but the one after that. So that should at least let you have different types of init segments, which will help with SSAI. Maybe not the widevine stuff yet or the DRM stuff yet, but we're getting there.
And Rob, it looks like you're putting stuff out there every 3 to 4 weeks or so. When I had a quick look at the releases.
Yeah, I mean, if you count the release candidates, and there were like 6 of them, it could be like every week. But with the patches, it's maybe every 2 weeks. The last 2 were like 1 week, 2 weeks. Minors are going to be a little farther apart. You know, we're probably going to be more like you said, like 3 or 4 weeks apart, maybe more depending on what goes in. But yeah, trying to move rapidly.
Cool. All right, awesome. Any more questions for Rob? So I'm going to put your hand down if I can figure out how to do that. Yes, I can. Okay, I have control.
I had one more question.
Go for it.
How is HLS.js tested? What kind of automation do you have?
We have unit tests and functional tests. So unit test coverage is not superb, but it's there where it's there. And then the functional tests are a series of tests that load each of the streams that you can see in the list on the demo page, and then run them through a series of, can it play? Can we seek to the end and it ends? Can it smooth switch qualities if it has multiple qualities? And so we do that on maybe 6 or 7 different browsers in Sauce Labs, and that runs in every PR. I think we skip it for contributor, forked PRs because of the secret keys and all that sort of stuff. But it's always running against development and against PRs within video dev fork.
Gotcha. So tests run in browser, but in Sauce Labs.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and then my team also tests HLS within HLS.js within JW Player. So you get a little bit of extra coverage there. That's the whole nother series of tests with a whole nother series of streams that we can't even share out there, but it certainly helps.
Cool.
All right. Well, Rob, thanks again.